Hello everyone, this is Tom Fox. I'm the Compliance Evangelist, and I'd like to welcome you to 1 Month to Better Third-Party Management. This month's podcast series is sponsored by Opus. Opus helps free your business from the complexity and uncertainty of managing the risks associated with your customers, vendors, and third parties. By combining the most innovative third-party risk management and know your customer compliance SaaS platforms with unparalleled data solutions, Opus turns information into action so your business can thrive. Opus solutions include the Hyperos ABAC Accelerator, the leading platform for third-party risk management. To learn more, go to www.opus.com. Opus is an appropriate sponsor for this month as I'm focusing on third parties, the third-party risk management process. Over the next couple of weeks, I'll be looking at the management of third parties after the contract is signed. We're going to take a look at auditing, relationship management, training, continually monitoring and updating your own third-party program. This is an incredibly important month on my 1 month series this year, and I'm sure that you will garner some new techniques that you can incorporate directly into your third-party risk management program. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for listening. Day 10, managing your third parties in a best practices compliance program. The building blocks of any Foreign Corrupt Practices Act anti-corruption compliance program lay the foundations for a best practices compliance program. In the lifecycle management of third parties, most compliance practitioners understand the need for business justification, questionnaire, due diligence, and evaluation of the due diligence, and compliance terms and conditions in contracts. However, as many companies mature in their compliance program, the issue of third-party management becomes more important. It is also the one where the rubber meets the road of operationalizing compliance. What you need to have, I think, is a strategic approach to the managing of your third-party relationships. The key is how you structure and manage these relationships. This may mean more closely partnering with your third parties to help manage the anti-corruption compliance risk. It would certainly lead towards enabling you to control risk while optimizing the performance of your third parties. To achieve these goals, I want to lay out for you a 5-step process. Number 1, consolidate third parties but retain redundancy. It is incumbent that you consolidate your third-party relationship to a smaller number to yield the best cost leverage. From the compliance perspective, it should also will also help make the entire third-party life cycle easier to manage. Moreover, a company should not over-consolidate by going down to a single source supplier. If you build a diverse supplier base with dual sourcing, from the compliance perspective, you should have a primary and secondary third party with whom you work with in the service line or geographic area to retain redundancy. Number 2, keep tabs on subcontracted work. This one area requires an appropriate level of direct company management. If your direct contracting party has a right or will need to subcontract some work out, you need to have visibility into this from the compliance perspective. You need to require and monitor that your direct third-party relationships have approved compliance terms and conditions in their contracts with their subcontractors. You will need to test that provision. In other words, you will be required to trust, then verify. Number 3, when disaster strikes, make sure your company is legally protected. This is where your compliance terms and conditions will come into play. One of the things I advocate is a full indemnity if your third party violates the FCPA and your company is dragged into an investigation because of the third party's actions. Such an indemnity may not be worth too much if you do not have one, there will be zero chance for you to recoup any of your legal or investigative costs. Another important clause is that any FCPA violation be a material breach of contract. This means that you can legally, under the terms of a contract, terminate it immediately with no requirement for notice and cure. Once again, you may be somewhat constrained by local laws, but if you do not have this clause, you will have to give written notice and an opportunity to cure. This notice and cure process may be too long to satisfy the DOJ and SEC during the pendency of an FCPA investigation. Finally, you need a clause that requires your third party to cooperate in any FCPA investigation. This means cooperation with you and your designated investigation team, but it also means cooperation with U.S. government authorities. You'll need to have the ability to move between third parties if the need arises. This is the redundancy issue I talked about in point 1. You do not want to be stuck with no approved freight forwarders or transporters in a certain geographic area. If a compliance-related matter occurs, you may well need certain contractual rights to move your work and to require your prime third party to cooperate with the transition to a secondary third party. Number 4, keep track of your third party's financial stability. This is one area that is not usually discussed in the compliance arena around third parties, but it seems almost self-evident. You can certainly imagine the disruption that would occur if your prime third-party supplier or agent in a contractor region went bankrupt. But in the compliance realm, there is another untoward red flag that is raised in such circumstances. Those third parties under financial pressure may be more easily persuaded to engage in bribery and corruption than third parties who stand on a more solid financial footing. You can do this by a simple requirement that the third party provide annual audited financial statements. For a worldwide logistics company, this can be something that should be easily accomplished. You should take advantage of automated financial tracking tools to keep track of material changes in your third party's financial stability. You should also use your in-house relationship manager to regularly visit key third-party relationships so an on-the-ground assessment can be a part of the ongoing conversation between you and your third parties. And number 5, formalize incentives for third-party performance. One of the key elements for any third-party contract under the FCPA or UK Bribery Act is the compensation issue. If compensation is too high, it could create a very large pool of money that could be used to pay bribes. It is mandatory that your company link any compensation or payment to the performance by the third party. If you have a long-term stable relationship with a third party, you can tie compensation into long-term performance, specifically including long-term compliance performance. This requires the third party to put skin into the compliance game so that you have a vested financial interest in getting things done in compliance with the FCPA or other anti-corruption compliance regimes. By linking contractual compensation to performance, there should be an increase in third-party performance around compliance. This is especially valuable when agreed-upon key performance indicators, KPI metrics, are created and can be accurately tracked. This would seem to be low-hanging fruit for the compliance professional. If you cannot come up with some type of metric from the compliance perspective, you can work with your business relationship team to develop such compliance KPIs. You should rank your third parties based upon a variety of factors, including the performance, length of the relationship, benchmarking metrics, and KPIs. This is a way for the compliance practitioner to have an ongoing risk ranking for the third parties that can work as a preventative and even prescriptive prong of the compliance program and allow delivery of compliance resources to those third parties who might need them or warrant them. Obviously, this helps to operationalize your compliance program as well. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, the first one is it's important to have a strategic approach to third-party risk management. An ad hoc approach simply will not get you there. Number 2, rank third parties based upon a variety of factors, including the compliance and business performance, length and relationship, benchmarking metrics, and KPIs. And finally, number 3, keep track of the financial stability of your third parties. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for joining me for Day 10 on managing your third parties in a best practices compliance program, and I hope you'll join me tomorrow for Day 11. This is Tom Fox. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of 1 month to better third-party management. If you have listened to this podcast on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate this podcast, as it will help our rankings and help us get the word out on this most unique podcast series in compliance. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This is Tom Fox. Thank you very much for listening to today, and I hope you will listen tomorrow on another episode of